Hi, I'm Glen Darcey. I'm Vice President of Product Management for Arturia. Here with Source talking about our newest product, the BeatStep, and kind of the inception, how it came about.
So tell us the story. What led Arturia to create an analog step sequencer?
We kind of came around it in a couple different ways. So the product really started off as, let's take our Spark pads. We've got nice controls off of the like the Mini Lab product. So let's take this and let's turn it into a pad controller. But kind of in the background of my mind, I wanted a step sequencer. There's just some aspects of the market that wouldn't accept a step sequencer, or they wouldn't find a place in some of the retail environment, other than some of the niche stores and stuff. This is probably one of my first drawings, and you can see it's pretty much like it is. We had a smaller knob here. We didn't have the transport controls at first. Did some alternate layouts to push it more towards being a dedicated step sequencer, but there are hardware issues because of the different levels of PCBs. So you'd have to have one lower than the other here and one higher again. So your PCBs would have to be offset. You'd have to have more connectors. It would drive up the cost for no real great functional benefit. And then we kind of landed with this direction with the transports, and then the knob grew based on what we had on our Spark hardware.
Were you inspired by any sort of classic step sequencers or products from history? Obviously, it's got a nod to the past in the analog CD out.
Well, I grew up, the first synthesizer I ever worked with was at Pasadena City College in Pasadena, California here. And that synthesizer was a vintage Moog modular. It was a 3-rack Moog system, not a 55. It was like a 33 with an extra rack on it. And that had two sequencers. You can see same one in our Modular V software here. So this was the first sequencer I ever used, and this is going back to 1982 when I first started working with synthesizer. I started in 1980, but with like a Moog Prodigy. So yeah, I've been using these forever, and I really wanted a hands-on sequencer, and they've existed within like the modular communities, but not in the mass market communities, since the 70s really. But nobody's really built one for the mass market. Yeah. And that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to bring the niche products into the mass market.
Certainly, I know that, like for myself, playing with analog equipment, half of the fun of it is the sequencing. The sound is obviously part of it, but actually the melodic possibility of step sequencing, taking yourself out of the piano roll, is a really inspiring and different way of making music, and entirely valid.
Yeah, it's like I play a number of instruments. I grew up playing saxophone. It was my main instrument, and then I got into synthesizers and keyboards in 1980. And I played some guitar as well. And each instrument that I play, you approach and come up with music in a very different way. And there's not any one fixed way that I like the best. So sometimes I'll sit down at a keyboard and do it. Sometimes generating something randomly with a step sequencer, you'll get some great ideas. I was using an 808 back in the early 80s, and sometimes when you'd run out of beat ideas, the best things you could do is take the 16 buttons and just kind of close your eyes and hit some buttons and go, oh, that hi-hat was, that's a great hi-hat.
Yeah,
wow, that really sucks. Don't ever do that again, But it's like in the microbrute, the type of step sequencer, and that will give you a completely different type of writing ideas and things. So, I think that with Arturia, we want to continue to bring those types of ideas and things with our products, like we've done with Spark and we've done with microbrute and with this.
For yourself, as someone who owns a studio and probably has a lot of gear, what are you actually most excited about trying, using this for now that it's a real thing?
Well, what I want to do with it, I've got an Oberheim expander that has CV gate for each voice. I've got a couple of mini brutes. I've got a couple of micro brutes. I've got a Pittsburgh modular. I've got a Sequential Circuits Pro 1. I want to get a few of these things together, because they're pretty small, and I think I can get a few of them, clock them all off of using like Live or something, send MIDI clock, put them all in external sync mode, and then start creating live and create a pattern on this one, store it, create a pattern on this one, store it, create a different pattern, recall these, and have all these step sequences, because the type of music I do is very, you know, old school, kind of Tangerine Dream, ambient types of things. So for me personally, that's what I'm going to end up doing, is get 4 of them and synchronize them.
Nice.
You know, once again, we're trying to bring this out and open it up to everybody, make it available to musicians everywhere. And the response that we've gotten at the show, and the response we're seeing online right now, is that you know, people are loving this. That they're loving the fact that, you know, we brought this to them and we brought it at this kind of a price point. So
awesome. Well, Glenn, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Alex.